This man is getting married out of his family today. He has been carefully dressed up, while his mother is sobbing so hard that she cannot speak, and his family members are crying their hearts out. Because from this moment on, as a husband who is marrying into his wife's family, there will no longer be a place for him in his own mother's home, and his bride's home will be his new home. All along the way he has to wear a red bridal veil. He cannot show his face. Meanwhile, the bride sits calmly at the head of the bed, her expression composed as she waits for her husband to arrive. This is Yenjing Township in eastern Tibet. On this land, women are the real pillars of the family, not only managing the household finances, being the main source of labor, and after men marry into their wives' families, needing to do the housework and look after the children, taking on the roles that women traditionally held in society. On this day, the bride Zha Xi finally lets out a long sigh of relief, because from now on, there is finally someone who can share her hard work. On this ancient land, the salt-making techniques that have been passed down for thousands of years are only passed on to women and not to men, and men are generally not allowed to enter the salt fields. When the first ray of morning sunlight shines down, the women of the village pick up their wooden buckets and hurry back and forth between the salt springs and the salt fields. And besides doing the housework, the men also have to carry the salt that has been produced with such hard work to distant places to sell. On both banks of the Lonsong River, tens of thousands of wooden racks stand densely side by side, together supporting neatly arranged salt drying fields. These salt fields spread out like a chessboard, and they have been like this for hundreds and thousands of years. In ancient times, this place used to be a vast ocean, and with the movement of the Earth's crust, the violent collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate squeezed the ocean into mountains, and also brought the minerals and brine buried deep underground up to the surface. The ancestors built water-drawing towers beside the rock wells, so that even when the river rises, they can still keep drawing the precious brine from them. The women climb down to the bottom of the rock well on homemade wooden ladders, use long wooden buckets to fill them with brine, and then carry the buckets on their backs up the rugged mountain paths. In this process they must keep their balance at every moment, otherwise if they fall, all the brine they have worked so hard to collect will be wasted. They have to make this trip back and forth 100 times a day. On the opposite bank of the Lonsong River is Jiada village, where the underground salt springs that gush out blend in a unique way with the red clay, eventually forming the precious red salt. Because it contains special minerals, it can be sold at the highest price on the market. The salt workers here have a strict salt drying process, and they do not just pour the brine directly into the salt fields, but first let it go through 3 days of purification in settling ponds, allowing the impurities to sink, and then carefully pour it into the salt drying fields. In order to avoid washing away the surface of the salt fields, they also use winnowing baskets to cushion the impact of the flowing water. After that, it is up to the sunshine and the breeze, and in just 2 or 3 days, the clear, sparkling salt crystals slowly precipitate out, becoming the most precious wealth of this land.
我感觉这个今年数字有天上真的是从这几个几入住的，那边是了沿着满洲的是满洲，出的俺这是这个人是干的俺这人发在了，那人这呢出的我出白的也下身子把买了呢，那我带的一场上真是，出的干子了我都干起来，眼的了我这个铺床上真呢。
This is 22-year-old Zha Xi Yongjiu. She has already long been the pillar of her family. She has inherited the family's 16 salt fields. Her mother has trouble walking and cannot do the labor. Her father passed away early, and her younger brother, being male, according to the village tradition, is not allowed to go down into the salt fields to make salt and can only do other housework at home. Therefore, since the age of 12, Zha Xi has been supporting this family on her own, going back and forth to the salt fields every day and earning money by collecting salt to support the whole family. From April to June each year is the golden season of the year for making salt. On fine and sunny days, her 16 salt fields can be harvested 3 times a day, and every day they can produce about 50 kilograms of salt. The first harvest of salt is called peach blossom salt, with the purest texture, a white color and excellent quality, and this kind of salt can be eaten directly, so its price is also the highest. The second harvest of salt is reserved specially for livestock. As for the third harvest, because it contains more impurities and cannot be sold directly, the villagers pour it back into the settling ponds to increase the concentration of the brine, ensuring that they can harvest higher quality salt the next time. And the creamy salt at the bottom of the salt fields is the very highest quality, and it is the most expensive kind of salt on the market. But making salt is not just about collecting it, the maintenance of the salt fields is equally crucial. In addition to collecting salt, Zha Xi also has to maintain the salt fields, and once a field is damaged, it needs to be repaired by laying new red clay, and this work demands enormous physical strength. But the women of the village have long formed a tacit understanding, helping each other and jointly maintaining this livelihood that has been passed down through the generations. Even though she works hard every day, Zha Xi has never complained in front of her family, because she knows that the men at home who do the housework also work very hard. Even though she and her fiancé are not officially married yet, the fiancé has long regarded himself as a member of Zha Xi's family. He goes up the mountain with Zha Xi's younger brother to chop firewood, tidies up the house, and keeps everything at home in perfect order. Zha Xi's wish is very simple. She just hopes that this year she can save a bit more money, hold a proper wedding, and officially bring her fiancé home as her husband. The red salt of Jada village is rich in unique minerals, and after the livestock eat it, they not only can gain weight more quickly and increase their reproductive rate, but can also reduce the chances of getting sick. This is also why the salt here has always been in short supply on the market. It not only sustains people's lives, but also nourishes all living creatures on this land. Yenjing Township is the only salt-producing area in eastern Tibet, and it can steadily produce more than 500 tons of salt every year, so it has also become the local trade center. When the time of the salt exchange season comes, herdsmen from nearby areas drive their yaks over long distances to come and buy salt. The salt here is divided into two kinds: peach blossom salt at 1 yuan per half a kilogram, and red salt at 4 yuan per half a kilogram. The herdsmen often buy several hundred kilograms at a time, and sometimes they also buy fabric, grain, and other daily necessities. The traditional way of bartering has always been preserved here. The herdsmen usually prepare butter in advance, take 2 children and a whole herd of yaks, and set off on the long journey to Yenjing Township. For those little boys of only 10 years old, this is not only a chance to exchange for salt, but also a journey to learn how to manage the family yak business. After several days of bumpy travel, they finally arrive in Yenjing Township and complete this ancient way of trading. This batch of salt will be enough to support the herdsman's needs for 3 months. The rainy season in July arrives on schedule, bringing a rare time of rest for the women of Yenjing Township. But after the rainy season is over, the salt fields that Zha Xi runs by the river have all been washed beyond recognition by the heavy rain. Fortunately, everyone works together with one heart, and no matter whose salt fields need to be repaired, the women from other families will all come to help. The work that would have taken a month to finish is all completed within just 1 week. After the repair work is finished, a new round of salt drying immediately begins. In order to save more money so that he can marry into Zha Xi's family, her fiancé starts helping with the work in Zha Xi's household before they are even married, and together with Zha Xi's uncle and younger brother, he sets off on a journey to sell salt. This time their destination is a remote village, where the price of salt is particularly high because transportation is inconvenient. Their trip will take half a month. After arriving at their destination, they will go from door to door, enthusiastically selling their salt. It is just that this time they are a little late, and the village has already refilled its salt stores. According to custom, grain exchanged with 10 shares of salt should amount to 13 shares, but in the end they only got 12 shares. Even so, the money they earned is still enough to move forward with plans for Zha Xi's wedding. In winter, when the Tibetan New Year is approaching, Zha Xi carefully collects the best creamy salt from the salt fields and devoutly offers it to a monastery at an altitude of 3,500 meters, praying for her family's safety and a good harvest in the coming year. When winter passes and spring arrives, she finally has saved enough money to hold the wedding. During the 3 full days of celebration, on the first night, Zha Xi is busy welcoming guests and relatives from all directions, while the groom's home is filled with sorrow. The father has tears in his eyes, the mother is weeping, and even the younger sisters are almost faint from crying. When the bridal procession arrives, the groom finally appears, wearing a red hat and riding a horse, and according to custom, before he reaches the bride's home, he cannot show his face, and only when he steps through the bride's door can he officially reveal himself. He brings with him a fertile field and a mule as the dowry given to his own family. After that, He solemnly vows that he is willing to protect Zha Xi for the rest of his life. In the days that follow, every time she sees her husband working hard for this family, Zha Xi feels full of comfort.
Ala nga ran sena di channel pani ba chu zen li kali me ngara me chi mis ka ya na mani ri od so de ya shi bu chi ri twa sa jenes me ya ru ya la sa zi zen cha za chi zen chi sa ko ti ji la me ya ru ya la ji li twa sa jen ala pa chu zen od li tu gu jwa zes.
Here, marriage is not about one person depending on the other, but about a life that is managed together. On this land, the river water flows and the salt fields crisscross, and the wind and frost of 1,000 years have carved out stories that belong only to Yanjing Township. Zha Xi is still hurrying back and forth between the salt fields and home, and her fiancé has finally become her real husband. Together they carry the burdens of life. At sunrise, her husband leads the mule onto the road to sell salt, and at sunset, Zha Xi stands quietly by the salt fields, watching the setting sun tint the salt crystals with a soft golden glow. Whether it is the herdsmen who travel over mountains and ridges, or Zha Xi's family who guard the salt fields, everyone is writing their own story on these salt fields. Perhaps life is like these sparkling salt crystals, tasting salty at first, yet under the washing of time, containing the most genuine sweetness.
In Yanjing Township, life has never been easy. There are no bright city lights here, and no bustling traffic from the outside world. But there is the most genuine perseverance. For hundreds and thousands of years, generation after generation, people have faced the blazing sun beside the salt fields and walked along the cliffs beside the river, carrying the weight of life on their backs and packing their hopes for home into wooden buckets. Zha Xi and her husband have also left a new story of their own on this land. One person once held up the whole family alone. And now, there is finally someone willing to stand beside her. And a man, from the moment he mounted the wedding horse, has also entrusted his whole life to this family. Their love has no sweet words, no diamond rings or bouquets of flowers. But between sunrise and sunset, between the firewood and the salt fields, it is polished bit by bit into the toughest form. Perhaps life is like this, seemingly ordinary, yet in countless repetitions, quietly brewing a light that belongs only to itself. Just like these salt fields, they taste salty, but the more time passes, the more you can taste their sweetness. Somewhere in the world, people are using the simplest way to hold on to life and also to hold on to love. If you're also moved by their story, you're welcome to tell me how you feel in the comments, so that more people can see the warmth of this land. We will see you in the next episode.